Hey, I'm PhilInTheBlanks, and welcome to Stage 1-1's Alphabet Gameathon, where I'll play 26 games, one game for each letter of the alphabet. Before I start, these are my 3 rules. Rule number 1, it has to be a game I've never played before. Rule number 2, it has to be on the original console, so no emulators or anything like that. And rule number 3, the game has to have an actual ending. And with that, let's get this started. Welcome to Stage 1-1's Alphabet Gameathon. A is for Alan Wake. It's kind of weird that, for my first game in my 26 games, I choose to play a third-person shooter, which is probably one of my least favorite type of games to play. That doesn't mean Alan Wake is bad. Alan Wake is actually really good. It's a survival horror third-person shooter, and it's pretty much just a Stephen King novel. Seriously, if you like Stephen King, you might as well just play this, because it's pretty much just Stephen King, the video game. Speaking of Stephen King, you play as Alan Wake, who, judging by how much he name-drops Stephen King, must be in love with the guy. Anyway, Alan Wake is a writer, and he's looking for his wife, who disappeared while they were on vacation. Throughout the game, you find pages of a manuscript that are taken from a novel that Alan was writing, describing all sorts of terrible things in the game that are about to happen. It's pretty much just you, your gun, and your trusty old flashlight against these shadowy monster things. And yeah, that's been done in like a bajillion other games, but Alan Wake has a really cool mechanic where your flashlight acts as a weapon. And the creatures are invincible until you shine enough light on them to make them vulnerable to your gunfire. It's a really cool idea for a game mechanic. It makes the game feel much more like a survival game compared to a lot of horror games nowadays that are, more about having 30 guns and mowing enemies down left and right. You really have to just take your time, shine your flashlight on them, and then damage them, so it feels a lot more menacing. But the problem is your flashlight, and I don't know who made this awful flashlight, but it drains the batteries in like 30 seconds, so you're constantly looking around for more batteries. And it makes for a good mechanic though. You're always on the run, you're always trying to get away from the lumbering zombie-like creatures, and it can be really hectic when you're out of batteries. The game though, it's really not that scary. It's pretty rare that I'm actually scared by a video game. Sure, something will pop out and I'm like, that was scary for like 1.5 seconds. And yeah, lots of games can do that, but no game really, scares me, with the exception of the Xbox 360 game Condemned. But Alan Wake has a nice, kind of creepy feeling to it. It's always kind of disturbing, kind of unsettling, and it fits really well with the atmosphere. And again, it feels like a Stephen King novel. Quite possibly the scariest thing about the game, though, is probably the way the characters' mouths move. Just look at these things. They're like creepy freaking marionettes from hell. I don't know. It's just unsettling watching these characters talk. It's a good game, though. It's not too long, you don't feel like it's dragging on, but it is a little repetitive. You're playing through this kind of mountainous town, so there are a lot of forests, there are a lot of mountain trails, and it feels like everything kind of blends together by the end, so you're kind of wishing that there was more than this little wilderness area. But the story and the narrative is enough to drive you forward, and it is a fun game. I definitely recommend it. Anyone out there who's tired of the same old shooter, definitely try out Alan Wake. It's getting a little harder to find, but if you do find it for a reasonable price, pick it up. You won't be disappointed.